Greetings, fellow retro fans, and welcome to Retro TV Radio. I'm your host, Pat McCormack. Barry King has been a beloved radio personality in Georgia for many, many years. He even has his own retro-themed talk show appropriately titled BK on the Air, which happens every Saturday morning on WBHF Radio in Cartersville. Alongside the equally talented Alan Sanders, the Barry and Alan team serve up an entertaining ride of pop culture, retro nostalgia, as well as some other fun tidbits that cover many topics and gives thousands of listeners a much-deserved weekend trip into the world of entertainment from the past to present. I was honored to have been included on the show with my segment from the golden age of TV for a number of wonderful years. Now it's my turn to host Barry on my podcast, which is really a far cry from the massive podium he shared with me. But it is my small way of saying thank you to this great guy and official retro pal like Dave Sundstrom and Thrashed Pondo Ponds. Enjoy this conversation, and like last week's Dave Sundstrom interview, hear BK's take on his personal favorite TV shows from the last half of the 20th century. Enjoy! Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podcast, the host with the most. I couldn't help it. Sorry. The host of BK on the Air, Mr. Barry King.
Thank you, Pat. The most what? I don't know, but I've got the most of something.
You know, I would say facial hair.
Oh, well, yeah, okay. There's guys with more than me, but yeah, you're right. I got that.
Well, I was thinking comparatively to the retro pals, but then I realized Thrash Pondo has facial hair, too.
Yeah, he's the king of the beard when it comes to all of us. Yeah, that's true.
Speaking of which, well, first, Barry, I don't know what it was, if it was like a past life or just one of these freak situations where you get to know somebody and it is as though you've known them forever. And I got that feeling from you, like right from the get-go. So what's your secret?
Well, I don't know that there's a secret. I was going to ask you the same thing. I thought you had the secret, but maybe not. Maybe we both have the secret, and the secret is we don't know what it is.
Except that it's totally cool.
Yes, and it's true. I mean, we grew up in completely different places. I talk about my buddy Alan Sanders is on the air with me. He's from Michigan, and I grew up in Alabama in the deep South. You're from the West Coast, way out west, but we're all from completely different places, all of us. And even our retro pals are all over the United States. But we all grew up in that same atmosphere of television and retro and nostalgia of the stuff that it was the same. It wasn't nostalgic yet. It's nostalgia now, but we still had all that. That's the connection that brings us all together. And it's true. It feels like, even though you and I have never met as of this recording of this show, we've never met in person, but it doesn't feel like we haven't, but we will one day. I'm sure of it.
Well, the thing is that you were first when it came to me getting to befriend people of like mind and of amount of prestige, such as yourself. You were it. You were numero uno, and it kicked it off by, hey, can I offer you a really cool opportunity? And I thought, now that's a really cool opportunity. Well, I think I'll take advantage of this guy. Who knows how long I can.
Well, having a show talking about this stuff every Saturday for 2 hours, which you and I are both passionate about, having someone who did and still do what you do, it made total sense. Thinking, well, why not? Why can't I ask Pat to put me together a little spot, like a little segment of the show called the Golden Age of TV, and we'll just play. He'll record one and talk about an older nostalgic television show. Keep it 2 to 3 minutes long, and it's just a spot during the live radio broadcast, and it just. We fit like a glove. It was perfect. It was just made to order. It was to be.
Well, and not only that, you gave me a sweet spot, though, in the show, Barry. Let's face it. I mean, first break, right after the first break, you still got listeners. Nobody's tired of listening to Alan Sanders, and they're like, okay, I'm still with the show. I can handle him. Surely I jest.
That was an inside joke, and by everybody's reaction, we could tell. Yeah, that's right.
But it was a great spot. I mean, you really...
First 15 minutes.
I'm telling you, that was awesome. And, for the life of me, I cannot remember what year it actually began.
And that makes sense, because that just means that we're kindred spirits. We can't put a date on it. It's just like it's always happened. It's always been there, but it hasn't. But we can't remember. You're right. I can't either.
Well, what was great was it was consistent. I mean, I was inspired because you gave me airplay, and that was great. And that's across the country, worldwide. Thank you to the internet. And I mean, it was a lot of exposure, and I really, of course, I've told you many times how much I appreciate it. But it was motivating. It was something that I was like, oh, got to do the radio show. That's going to be cool. Saturday morning. What better day? What better time? And gosh, it's been years. It was years straight. I think 2.5. That's the funny thing. I'm not really a log keeper.
Right. Me either.
I'm more of a log flusher, and I just don't.
Right. I'm more of a log recorder, captain's log. I record them. Yeah, you're right.
Every now and then one will get away, end up in the wrong place.
Yeoman, you want to come in my quarters and let's discuss the captain's log? Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, well, hey, I need to thank you too, because you don't have to thank me, because you being on the show, it helped me put out even better, better and more professional and nostalgic content, which went right along with my show, just like you and I went together like that, just like peas and carrots. It was great.
Well, and again, listen, folks, to do what Barry and Alan and Walt and all your other great personalities that you work into the show there do is, as I've said before, a talent. Having a wife that works in radio and a father that was on-air personality for many years, I learned the lingo, and it is called the talent. And, you guys were like, oh, no, we just talk, you're playing it down. Yeah, except for the fact that I know, because I've known all these people that are doing it, that you guys are extremely talented. The way you guys carry the show, the back and forth banter is seamless. You would almost think it was scripted, and yet it isn't.
Well, it's definitely, I appreciate that. And it's definitely a throwback, because for the longest time, it was like, oh, radio's dead. No one listens to the radio. Everyone does podcasts now. Well, it's amazing when we talk to people, and we have podcasts too. I turn the show into a podcast after I'm done, just remove the commercials. And now people will go, oh, yeah, we have a podcast, but you have a radio show? You're actually on a radio station? So it's almost kind of, the scales have turned back the other way. And everybody's like, it was like when email came along. When email was new and you sent an email, it was cool. You're like, oh, I sent an email today. This is back in the late, the mid 90s when I was doing it. And then you'd get an email and you're like, oh, wow, I got a ding. I got an email. What is it? You just got excited. And you talk about sending a letter or mailing a letter and putting a stamp on the letter and mailing it, or getting a letter. Back then you're like, oh, who wants a letter? Nobody mails letters anymore. Well, again, it's just the opposite now. I don't care about emails. Emails are junk. I mean, you check an email, email's not that important anymore to me. But now if I get a letter in the mail from someone with a stamp on it and they took the time to write a letter, that's more important to me than email. So the old ways, like radio, AM radio, FM radio, terrestrial radio, as they call it, and maybe getting a letter in the mail now, stuff like that is like kind of coming back and being cool, because it's kind of special, now. That's I equate those two things together. I really do.
Right. Well, and again, for the weekend warrior that is not just out of high school or just out of college for that matter, but they're out there. I've been one, fellas that are working in the body shop or working in the yard or doing any kind of activity listening. Let's face it, the radio is much better. I mean, you just tune in your WBHF and you're there with BK and Alan, and it's just a blast.
And anywhere you are, you can tune into your local radio station, because people still to this day want that immediate, like this. If there's an emergency, a weather problem, something going on immediately, they usually just turn that local radio, whether they're streaming the local radio, they could still stream it somewhere, or just turn that radio on and just tune to that radio station. What's going on up there? Is there a tornado warning? The thunderstorm? What's going on? A flood? That instant information and being on that terrestrial radio is still there, and I'm so grateful for that.
Well, and it's not going. I don't think it's not going anywhere, and
I don't either, and I'm glad.
but that's what it is. Let's face it. What you guys do is a podcast that is broadcast over a radio station, a vast area. On top of it being streamed, that's another plus. But it's really unique, because I sure as heck don't get airplay out of my podcast.
Well, yeah, and what's in and even better part now is we have our own app for the radio station, which is great. We have an app for that, so for all your devices and stuff. So that was even a more of a kick, to kind of, hey, you can't hear us locally because you're too far away. Go to the website. You can't hear us. Use these other apps like TuneIn and SoundCloud, TuneIn and Radio Garden, or you can just download our free app for our radio station, and you can listen to us live there and interact with us, send us messages, read station bios of who's working, who you're talking to, listen to archives of the station, and they're all the shows are archived on there. So it's an even further step with our app. So we're really getting out of there. We're getting out. Our little network we have such a cool network together.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that. I want to stay on BK on the air though, because I've already told you what it's done for me and how honored I was to be a part of it for so many years. I can actually say that. I can't believe it. That's crazy.
Very happy. I'm happy to do it.
But there may be one or two people that listen to what I do that don't know who you are.
Yes, I'm sure there are quite a few people.
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, like we were saying, between you, Dave, Thrash, and me, we kind of intermingle our audience.
Yes, we do. Yeah, which is great. I love that.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, between you and Dave, you guys have the lion's share, and so me and Thrash have no problem with riding some coattails here. I like
counting us all together like one big organism. I love that. We're one big life form. Yeah.
Well, and that was the thing I said, Dave, so now that you have 1 million subscribers, what is that like? And he was like, it's just over 150,000, Pat. And I'm like,
just misread it.
You don't understand, Dave. To me, that's 1 million.
That's 1 million. Just add another few zeros.
Dear God Almighty. I'm going to round up anytime I can to get you 1 million. Barry King, his listenership goes even out into space. I mean, it's just incredible.
Right. Yeah, we don't want any aliens here in my show off the radio waves. That's for sure. They'll avoid us like the plague.
Working with 500,000 watts of power. I mean, it's just astonishing.
You're just adding too many zeros to these things. Just too many zeros.
What, are you saying I exaggerate?
Well, just maybe a little bit. Yeah, I'll take it though.
Is it wrong?
No, it's not wrong. I didn't say it was wrong.
Okay.
No, it's fine. You're good. That's fine.
I shall refrain.
Good. Okay. Just don't add the zeros to my weight. That's all.
Oh, no. Just be realistic, Pat. When it all comes down to everything, personal traits, all of the above.
That's right.
But see, that's the thing. That's the thing that I know people who hadn't heard of Dave Sundstrom, as if there were, listening to us talk, you can hear it. You can hear the connection, and that's the thing about Barry. I wouldn't do comparisons between the other two guys, but let's face it. Whenever we talk just to get on the phone and talk, it always goes for at least a half an hour, longer. And if I'm not wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but 80% of the time we are just cracking up.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's almost like we're giddy little teenagers dating each other, because when we get ready to hang up, I'm like, no, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up, Pat. No, Barry, you hang up first. No, you hang up.
I was with you, baby, all the way till the dating thing. I don't know.
Long distance. It's long distance dating. It's long distance.
I don't have that throw up button that you guys have at the station, but yeah, that's gonna work.
Okay,
that's gonna work.
Sure. but I was and being in radio, just starting way back in the early '80s. That's how long I've been doing radio, and I've loved every minute of it. I tried my best to find something that I can do where I don't wake up Monday mornings or whatever day, and I'm like, oh no, I got to go to work. This is horrible. Now I did do that for a while with jobs here and there, but with this job, I've never not looked forward to going into work, and that's a passion, and everyone should have it somehow in their lives. They really should. Well,
it's more than a passion, Barry. I'd say, quite frankly, being that that's what I've been searching for at least a decade and a half. I mean, music was it for me, and then it started getting to the point where I needed to try to pivot, expand out, try something that wasn't wrecking my ears so much, and that's when I got into trying to be the talking head, and fortunate enough to get on your show. But the thing is that you have that job. I mean, it's BK on the air, and the reason is you have the talent. And Alan, again, is the perfect sidekick because he has equal the talent of speaking on the radio. I wouldn't want to put you guys up against each other because you're too good of friends. And that's the other thing. Because you're so different in many ways, it gels so well. And I want everybody that hasn't tuned in to BK on the Air that can hear this to tune in Saturday mornings, 10 a.m., WBHF, and you will be entertained.
Well, I appreciate it. Every time you tell me that, I start to. I know it's audio. You can't see me blushing, but I am, because I can't. Sometimes I can't believe I get to do what I get to do. 10 a.m. till noon. That's Eastern on Saturday, live on WBHF, WBHFradio.org, or you can download our app and listen. But there is a way to listen if you miss it. So Alan and I both love what we do, and we're in awe of you and what you do, and the way the guitar work and the music. You did the stuff that we wish we could do. Alan and I are about as musical as a rock. Yeah, I think a rock maybe is more musical than us, or a stick or something. At least with that, you can tap them together. But we're not musical. We're the only musical. We try to sing. We appreciate music. We love talking about albums and our favorite groups and top rock albums and classical music and movie soundtracks. We're all about the music. But I tried taking piano lessons once, and I gave up and almost pulled my hair out, because it's all mathematical, and I don't get that. So I can't. Bach is one of the most mathematical classical composers that ever lived. It's all mathematics with his notes and stuff, and I could never get that. I could never get that whole and even math. I suffered with math in school and algebra and all that stuff. I was more of a science and performing arts. Let's do a play. Let's do a stage play. Let's do things like that. I was much more into that. So, doing radio, WKRP lit a fire in me when I was 11 years old. I'd watch WKRP on CBS and go, man, wouldn't it be great to do that? That would be so fun to work and do that. And right as I was coming out of high school, it happened for me, and I got my first job in radio. But it has been basically a dream come true. A lot of people don't get to do what they dream about, but I'm just lucky. I get to do what I dream about, and I even got the dream girl that I wanted and married her. So I'm lucky when it comes to a lot of things. Just lucky.
Oh, I knew that was coming.
It's true.
I knew Stacy was going to rear her beautiful head eventually.
It's true.
And she's a sweetheart, too. And how do I know? I got one of the same. Matter of fact, they kind of look alike, which we've kind of marveled over.
we both married well above our pay grade when it comes to looks, brother. I'm telling you right now. We did.
Oh, speak for yourself. Anyway, what I was thinking.
I am. They both look at our wives and go, "You married him? Really? What? You need glasses or no?"
Well, I could tell you stuff, but Gary, hey, Gary. Oh,
yeah. You call me Gary. I don't mind.
I'm not going to call you Ray.
You can call me Jay.
But I will say this. When you say you and Alan, for instance, are not music-minded, what I would do is I would refine your description of what it is you guys are when it comes to music, because I've talked to you both enough about it. Yes, I can claim to be an expert. I ate, drank, and slept it for 40 years.
And you're one hell of a guitar player. I mean, give me a break. I mean, that's just crazy.
Well, and, it didn't come naturally, which, strangely, at one point it did. It kicked into naturally once I gained the freedom of having the amount of knowledge that I did and the amount of experience. And then this freedom thing happened, which I don't know, man. I've heard different experts talk about what it takes to get to the point of being an expert. And 10,000 hours sounds about right to me. When you hear that number, it's like, yeah, that's about right.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's for me, or when I could do that, I had that freedom of anything goes. I don't have to even think about this. And that's a freedom I have that I understand.
Right.
Your talent obviously lies elsewhere. But anybody that appreciates ELO, in my book, is a very sophisticated music lover.
Well, I'm so glad you said that, because he is. If I had to pick one, probably my favorite musical rock pop musical personality, producer, writer, singer, guitarist, just creator, it's Jeff Lynne and his group Electric Light Orchestra. He was Electric Light Orchestra. He was the man behind them, and he's produced so many people. He's written for so many people. Heck, even the Beatles asked him to produce for them. And how good must you be for the surviving Beatles to say, "Hey, come here and help us produce this"? I know you're friends with George Harrison, but come on. But I love a lot of groups, but they just say everyone usually has their one favorite group or person in music, and when it comes to rock, for me, Jeff Lynne is the man. He's the man. But yeah, that's great.
I agree. And what I will add to that is very few bands in our past have been able to take sophisticated rock music, I mean, with full-on classical strings involved and such, and literally create ambient atmospheres you hear it and the whole world around you changes into this atmosphere of what this artist is conveying musically. And I think ELO, more than any other act that I know of, besides maybe the Beatles and, a couple of the other classic folks, but they literally would plant a mood around your entire body with a song. And the mood, I might add, was really good.
Oh, yeah.
Is that a good description?
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, that describes it. We could go even further, but yeah, any group like ELO's does it. The Beatles have done it. You've said that. Queen does that. Pink Floyd does that. They have big ideas about music. They've taken every one of those groups, and there's more too. There's more Moody Blues. We could keep naming them, but taking the rock pop sounds of guitars and drums and synthesizers and bass and vocals, and mixing them in with the classical sounds of a full orchestra or a choir or even more than that, or certain, like maybe one or two violins and a cello or something, and make that all mesh. I always wondered, what would Beethoven, what would Tchaikovsky, what would Wagner, what would Mozart think if he heard some of this? Now, as much as they loved music, I think they would be astounded at what they heard, because if it's good music, no matter what era it's from, it's good. And if it's musical, has a lot of musicality or whatever you want to say, I think those classical composers would love a lot of that stuff that these groups have done that we've mentioned.
Well, I can't say that I agree with the other groups you mentioned, but when it comes to ELO, for sure, because the composers wrote the same way, which was to create a mood. The difference is it was so complex, and I like to envision those cats coming back and hearing ELO and going, it's the simplicity that I care for the most with this. Isn't it simple? But simple in just the right way.
Okay, I don't know who you're doing there, but that's great. I don't know which one of those cats that you're doing, but that's great. That sounds awesome.
It was the plethora of all of them.
It all mixed together. Okay.
I mean, I could have said, "Und I don't know about this.
Yep.
This English band."
Yeah, no, that was great. Stick with the other one.
Yeah.
That was great. That was awesome.
Much more eloquent. But
yeah, right.
You know what? I think they would be impressed in that.
They would.
Comparatively, even though not to us, ELO doesn't sound simplistic to us.
No, and if anybody wants to get introduced to them, all I got to say is buy the album Out of the Blue. Probably one of their best albums they did. Is where most of their big hits were from. But there's a complete side of Out of the Blue. I think it's side 3 on record 2. It was a double record set, but on a CD or whatever. It's just it'll be like it'll start with a song called Standing in the Rain, and the whole 18 minutes is called Concerto for a Rainy Day. It starts out with a storm. All the songs in the middle lead up to the end song, which is Mr. Blue Sky, when the sun comes out at the end. But that's an entire 18, 19 plus minute treat of music. If you can ever listen to it, you'll admit that you've never heard anything like it. And it's an incredible piece of music.
Yeah, it's a creation of an alternate world. And
certainly, yeah.
You get transported there when you listen to these guys. And that
right.
And the prerequisite for this world is that you feel good.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, wow. When it comes to the feel-good music, ELO takes the cake for me. So that was something you and I immediately, and we were like, hey.
Yeah.
Hey.
I love that connection. Mr. Blue Sky got voted the happiest rock song of all time.
Yeah, I believe it.
With good reason. But yeah, we got that connection.
Yeah, and yet it is so sophisticated. You're not going to find that no. on the pop rock channel. It's going to be somewhere in the more classic rock realm. But even then, compared to a lot of that stuff, it's like, no, ELO's the grown-ups. Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Well, you're right. We've got all those connections, yes.
I mean, BK on the Air is a talk show. And I know, of course, being in radio, I don't know this about your past, or maybe we've talked about it before, but were you ever a disc jockey? I mean, the guy that spun the records. I don't know if you were around in the time when you got to choose the records, but to play, that is. But was that ever a part of your career as a radio personality?
Well, it kind of was in a limited way back in 1983 when I was a junior in high school. It was a little station in Center, Alabama. It was 1560 AM WAGC, which is no longer around, unfortunately. But when I drive home, sometimes I still see the old tower there for the radio station because it's still there because it's been used as a cell phone tower now. So I'm like, it's still got a job. That's good that it's still working. But it was a very podunk country in the middle of nowhere country station where it was a local. They had local news. They read the obituaries. They played gospel music on Sundays and they played country music during the week. And I would come in, sometimes in the afternoon on and off just to make sure everything was running. And back then they'd had the tape carts where you'd switch out carts and play commercials. And I was trained on how to do that. I had to keep up with that. But every now and then I got to go on the air and announce the time and the temperature and read some obituaries and give my personal opinions on stuff. I snuck that in sometimes, but they didn't really like that very much, so I had to quit doing that. And so it was, and we did have music there, and I did get to where I was getting into playing some of the country songs that they were playing and maybe introducing some of them every now and then. They'd let me do that. But that's where I started. So yeah, I guess I was a disc jockey of some kind to begin with. Yeah.
Barry, I've never asked you this, and it kind of surprises me because I loved it. I'm not so hot on the main guy anymore, but it was good when it was good. And have you seen Howard Stern's Private Parts?
I have never seen that movie. I need to see it. It's on my list to watch, but I have never seen it. I know that's surprising.
Oh my gosh.
So I guess I really need to see it now, right?
You really do, because
I will.
You will directly relate to what Howard had to go through. And I mean, no matter what you think of the guy, he acted his butt off in that film. I mean, it was so believable. Go figure, because he was playing himself. I mean, this really happened.
Right.
And in that way, it was even more entertaining because he was able to bring some real authenticity to his experience, in radio. And it's all stuff that you would be laughing your tush off because you probably experienced it,
It would probably blow your mind. As much as I love movies, and you know how much we all love movies and television, but there are a few movies out there that everyone has seen that for some reason I haven't seen, and that happens to be one of them. I really need to see it.
Oh yeah, you'll love it, I promise.
Hey, I didn't get to watch Flashdance till about 4 months ago for the first time. My wife, Stacy, goes, "You haven't seen Flashdance? You got to watch this movie." I'm like, "Okay, I'll watch it." I wasn't really into dancing back in the 80s. I didn't really care. But we watched it, and I finally saw Flashdance. So I'm catching up all onto the older ones.
Barry, keep it down, man. I think my wife can hear you.
Oh, no, he loves Flashdance.
There's certain things. There's certain movies. Oh, no, honey. We're not talking about Flashdance. He was talking about Grease. Yes.
Please don't let her know I didn't see it. We don't want that to happen. No,
Grease is the word, baby.
I've seen Grease. Yeah, I've seen Grease several times. Yeah.
Hairspray? I don't need hairspray. I don't have any hair.
I don't need hairspray.
Jesus. Okay.
I've missed so many movies. It's crazy.
I shall watch it.
Don't let her know. I'd like her to you still be friends with me. Don't let her know, please.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I don't have a geek wife. In some ways, I kind of wish I did. You're a little bit more geeky, but
keeps it more interesting around the house, whether she's not.
Luckily, I have one and a son. He keeps me hip.
Oh, good.
He keeps me up to date. Dad, have you seen this? Dad, I'll watch this with you. Why? Because you got to see it. He's got that.
Having a child connection, that's perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah.
24-year-old child, too. So he knows everything about every genre and age group of stuff.
Good. That's good. When you did get in contact with me this week and told me, or last week, you said you want to do this, and you told me our subject matter, I'm like, oh, that's great. That's going to be easy to prepare for. Well, it wasn't, because
sex?
I always cheat on lists. I cheat on lists.
Subject matter was, I said the subject matter is sex. Now, be prepared.
No, that's what you said first.
Oh, wait. Did we change it?
No, you changed it. You did.
Oh, my God. Oh, man. Well, there goes these cue cards. Jeez.
Scrunch them out and rewrite them right quick.
I even had pictures. Oh, well. Jeez. Not that you could see them, but hey.
No, we can't.
I'm a pretty good describer.
You can talk about them. Yeah, I can too.
Oh, God.
Yeah, right.
See, that's what I'm talking about, folks. This is the kind of fun we have. And even better, the four of us have. When we did the Retro-Palooza get-togethers via Dave Sundstrom's channel, those streams were a blast.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
And I'm not speaking about them in the past tense either, Barry.
Yeah. No, and I'm looking forward to any future ones, too. I mean, we'll have more on the horizon, I'm sure.
We already made that statement, and what I'm saying is I had interviewed Dave already, and we were both talking about how great it was and how we need to start up again. What happened? Yeah. What happened with the situation, and believe me, I totally related to it because I got into the streaming thing for a while, and I can tell you it's really hard. It's a juggling act, and when you see somebody that can really handle it and do it with grace and get everything to flow like Dave, it's almost like, why even try? he's
right.
He is the man when it comes to live streaming.
Oh, yeah.
He's just got that gift, much like yours. His voice, as we were talking about, he's the living lullaby.
Yeah, I've always said if I'm in a hospital and I'm in a coma or I'm in bad shape or something, I said just fly. I'll pay for it. Fly Dave to my hospital side bed and let him just talk to me or read me a book or something or do something, and that's going to make me feel so much more soothing and better than anything ever would.
There you go. And see, that is why Dave is popular. Not just for the fact that he's knowledgeable as hell. It is the way that he presents it, which is almost opposite of how I am. We are the yin and the yang, you know.
Sure, yeah.
I'm the loudmouth, sometimes raunchy, former heavy metal musician that. And Dave's like, you do know I'm from Salt Lake City, Pat. So there is this great contrast.
Yeah.
Whereas you and I don't have that contrast because you're a rock and roller. There's just no two ways about it. And then you throw thrash pondo in the middle, and it's just like the gravel that holds us all together.
Yeah, and I think that's partly why we have such a good time together. I think it's great. I look forward to it every time we do it.
Well, that's the thing. Now, I've done Dave. I've done you. Well, I haven't done you completely yet, and I don't like where this is going. What I'm saying is, I haven't finished with you yet.
Flowers this time.
But Bob Thrash Pondo Pons is next.
Yes.
This guy, I mean, when I first saw him, I was like, that's the next Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, he's really great.
He's so funny.
Yeah, he is.
And knowledgeable. Not to mention, he's got a heart of gold.
Yeah, and to be honest, he uses a lot of big words, and I have no idea what they mean. I'm sure they're real words, but I don't know what they mean. I have to look them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm nervous. I got him next week. Oh, boy.
Keep your thesaurus by you or the program pulled up on the computer.
I am definitely going to use my Dino thesaurus.
Good.
But hey, you know what? Let's do this television thing that we talked about, because that is really where, now the fact is you and I connect on many other levels and other
yes.
Idioms, but this classic TV thing is definitely a solid one. And I asked Dave, and one or two shows from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I picked those decades because I'm the host and I get to pick the decades.
And that's great. That's that's expected. Yes, that's fine. I love it. I'm ready. But it took me a while to put this together because I had to agonize over the 70s, because that's my decade, is the 70s. So, yeah.
Yes.
So I know that one.
Well, we have to keep Barry King under control, folks, because his enthusiasm overflows sometimes. And
that's true. Very true.
So I was like, just one, Barry.
I can't help it.
I shouldn't hurt him that much. You can have two, Barry. But okay.
Yes, I got him.
Let's start. 1950s, your two favorite TV shows, even though I know you weren't like hanging around on the TV set a lot, but you know the era.
Oh, yes. Well, I did watch, but even when I grew up and remember watching TV for the first time in the late 60s, starting then, and then from then on to the rest of my life, I watched 50s television thanks to my parents. And I can thank my mom and dad from both introducing me to my favorite 50s television show and one of my favorites of all time. And I'm going to put a split on it here because it does include something else that comes along with it automatically. I absolutely love, and the man himself, I absolutely love the Jackie Gleason Show and the Honeymooners, which he performed live on the Jackie Gleason Show, which went on to be a 39-episode syndicated series in the 50s as well. So Jackie Gleason Show and The Honeymooners occupy my number one spot for the 50s. Fantastic. You don't get it. How can you not be a living legend on television with the nickname The Great One? How many people get called The Great One? That's Jackie Gleason.
Barry, you're the greatest.
Oh, Pat.
Now to the moon.
Yeah.
But I think,
Yes.
that hit the nail on the head for me. Dave mentioned The Adventures of Superman, which I thought was a nice
Sure. Yes, of course.
pick, because I felt strongly about that one myself.
I don't think there's a wrong answer. I really don't.
So is it just that one that you have for the 50s, or
No, I actually have a number 2 for the 50s.
did I just
believe
ruin it?
No, you didn't ruin it. No, it's not Superman, but that was a great show. I didn't watch. I didn't get to watch Superman a lot growing up, but I did finally see it later on. But my second favorite show of the 50s actually went off the air in the 50s. It was started as a radio show and turned into a television series, went off for a few years and came back in the 60s. And it's Dragnet with Jack Webb.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's never been a more, I mean, there's been a lot of them, but Jack Webb is a producer and a creator on all the shows that he worked on. But the Dragnet radio show, usually people were on the radio, someone else played the main character, but hey, Jack Webb portrayed Sergeant Friday on the radio and on television. So that was what he was known for. That 30-minute format for a drama for Dragnet and not to feel rushed. And he was in charge of the entire production. That whatever the subject matter might be for the episode, they're chasing a robber, they're looking for a car thief, they're having an inquiry on a shooting that a police officer was involved in. I don't care what story it was. It goes for the 60s show as well, because Dragnet came back in the 60s. It was a fantastic show, and it's legendary, but for a reason, because of that.
Right. Well, and it came from my neck of the woods, right, Barry?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. KGO Radio, San Francisco. That's where Jack started the show and did the show, and it's like, right around the corner from me. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah. I was like, wow, I didn't realize that was a local show here. But I wasn't alive yet, so whatever.
Right. I mean, how many times has Dragnet been parodied? I mean, someone would be in trouble and people would get it, usually not the young kids today, but you're like, uh-oh, dun-dun-dun. It's like you knew what that meant, or just the facts, that very cadence way that he would speak. Jack Webb's talk very fast like this. You tell me what's going on, man, but we'll take care of everything. He was the master of that. He really was.
And you do know, according to somebody's research, he never said just the facts, ma'am.
No, he never said that. You're right.
Yeah.
It just sounds good. It just sounds like something that he would say.
It's true. How weird is that?
Yeah, it does. Because that's all he was interested in was the facts anyway, yeah.
And getting the youth of our streets together and off drugs. Anyway.
That's right. But out of all the 50s, that's the two shows to me, if I have to just name two, that's the two that come to mind that stick out as my favorites.
It's funny because I'm like, I know what Barry's going to say, and I was wrong. I was wrong on both of those. So that's cool. I bet you I do know what you're going to say for the 60s for at least one of them.
Oh, really? Which two did you think I was trying to choose? Superman for the 50s? What was the other one for the 50s you thought I was going to choose?
I just couldn't begin to try to figure out what Barry would be loving from the 1960s.
No. I mean, the 50s. You said the 50s. You knew what I was going to do, and I disappointed you. You didn't get it right. What was the one you thought I'd choose?
No, I didn't know what you were going to say. Okay, sorry. I thought it would be Superman and the Lone Ranger, but no, that's quite all right.
Okay, good shows. Yeah, okay. I could see that. Yeah.
All right, but on this one, at least I know I got one right. I think I just totally gave it away, but...
Do you? Really? Are you sure? Okay.
Do tell.
Well, the 60s. Okay. Well, I'll go with my second favorite first on the 60s. How about that? My second favorite show of the 60s was a show that I rushed home after school. Actually, both of them are. But this one was I really did rush home too after school to see this show after school, and I could not wait to get home to watch it. And it's just a silly, very 30-minute sitcom from the mind of Sherwood Schwartz, Gilligan's Island.
Oh, yeah.
What a show this man put together. Critics wrote that show off as crap. They couldn't believe the popularity that surrounded Gilligan's Island. They thought it was stupid. But you know what? That show was a dichotomy of society. You had different people from different backgrounds stranded on an island trying to get along with each other. And it turned out to be very well written, very witty, very funny. And every one of those people playing those characters were spot on and picked to play them for a reason. And I loved every stinking minute of Gilligan's Island from beginning to end.
I agree. Perfectly cast. You know, a matter of fact, on this podcast, I had Bob's widow, Dreama Denver.
That's right, yeah.
And
it was great.
What a dream she is. I mean, just an amazing lady, so wonderful. And their story is intense. And only insofar, how do I say that? Only insofar as parents, they weren't blessed. They had a severely autistic child. And Bob just, you know what, he sort of threw in the towel on the acting thing just so that he could be there for his young son who, you know, needed constant care and basically still does all these years later. But Dreama, of course, is hanging in there, living right next door to him and making sure everything's okay with him. And that's the kind of woman she is. So, yeah, I had to sing my kudos to the Denvers. And, yeah, folks, listen to that. Listen to that. It's on the playlist here with Dreama Denver.
For sure. And when I read his book, Gilligan, Maynard and Me, I think was the name of one of the books he wrote, along with his career and covering everything else, he's always sung the praises of his wife, and that's just amazing. They had to be a great couple. It's great.
Damn cigarettes. But anyway, moving on.
Right.
What was your other one, Barry? As if I didn't know.
Oh, well, it was another show. It only lasted for 3 years. It didn't do very well in the ratings, and to be quite honest, I don't know how you could have guessed what it is, but it's a little show that we like to call Star Trek from the 60s.
Yeah.
I mean, big surprise, Pat.
Well, the fact is...
I know you had to get that wrong.
That was the thing, that when we both first started talking to each other, that was the story with me. As a matter of fact, Star Trek is what got me into this from the start. And so we had that instant mutual admiration for a show that we totally related on and could talk about episode by episode. And it's, you know, believe me, we're not the only ones that can do that, but it brought us together. And as Dave and I were saying, it had that feeling of home, or that it could maybe even take you away from home. You could get into a Trek episode and just disappear.
Yes, and 60s sci-fi was kind of sketchy at best, special effects wise and silliness wise sometimes. Even Star Trek got silly sometimes. But and I'll apologize to everyone who's a Lost in Space fan. Lost in Space was a good show. It has a following. It was what it was. It's popular. It was an Irwin Allen show. I do agree with that. But Lost in Space was another type of sci-fi show. Star Trek took itself seriously. I mean, it was never Lost in Space and Star Trek were sci-fi shows, and that's all they had in common. They took place in outer space. They really didn't have anything else in common, as far as I'm concerned. But it was well done, well acted, well written. I mean, the special effects were kind of goofy sometimes, but I didn't care when I watched it. I didn't recognize bad special effects. If I saw an alien on a styrofoam rock in Star Trek made out of pipe cleaners, I thought, oh, that's an alien. Look at that. It's the alien that's after them. So, and what else? Pat, can you think of any other entertainment phenomenon like Star Trek that has gone on to do what it did? It went off the air in 1969. It was never really big in the ratings. It had mediocre, okay ratings. It had great ratings as they rate things today. They rated things differently back in the old days. 10 years after it went off the air, after Star Wars came out in 77, they can thank Star Wars for this, but they made their first motion picture in 1979, which launched the Star Trek movie franchise, and then it's launched a whole new world of Star Trek over the next 35, almost 40 years after that. So it's a phenomenon, and it's a great show, and it's my number one show for a reason, and that's it. It's great.
It's the most successful franchise in the history of entertainment. Period.
It's got to be. It's got to be, yeah.
And so, yeah, I agree with you on that. When it comes to Lost in Space, because you brought it up, I have to say they were on the right track in that first season. You know, when it was black and white.
Very different. Yes.
When it was in black and white and the pilot episodes, oh my God, they were so good. They were pure adventure, and I thought the special effects were incredible. I mean, the whirlpool, the giant one-eyed cyclops, the Jupiter 2 alone, and the shots, and thanks, John Williams, the soundtrack.
Right, yeah, very great music.
You have those things involved in the Lost in Space that made it stood on its own next to Star Trek until it started to try to be like Batman, and that was the thing.
Right.
It's like, ooh, color in camp, let's do that.
Right, and Irwin Allen was so known for that because I also loved Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. In fact, that's my favorite Irwin Allen show. But it was very serious and much better in its earlier season when it was black and white when it first started. Then it started rehashing monsters from Lost in Space on there, and he started reusing monster suits and weirdo things and things like that, and it turned into that kind of that too. So, and I understand why it happens.
He was a penny pincher. That's how.
Yeah, I don't have to like it though. So, yeah.
Okay, well, let's jump ahead.
Okay.
To the 70s. That's when the disco music should start playing.
Well, I want to throw one in an honorable mention for the 60s, Adam 12. I mean, probably one of my favorite cop shows of all time, for sure.
See, there you go. There you go.
Another Jack Webb. Sorry, I'm breaking the rules. I'm sorry. Sorry. 1970s. That's my era. 70s is my era. That's the era. That's the decade that babysat me. After I got out of school, my mom was a single parent at that point and raising both my sister and I. So when we got home from school, we'd lock the door at home and watch television, and it took care of us till Mom got home. And number two, I'm just going to start with my number twos before I go. My number two show.
Wait, because you brought up Adam 12.
Yeah.
You've given me a perfect opportunity to plug another one of my podcasts. So thanks,
that's
Barry.
Right. Yeah, that's good. See why I did that? You see why I did that?
Folks, Kent McCord was in this last season, and it was an incredible conversation. I was so honored to talk to that man, and he was so nice and down to earth. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because, folks, you need to listen to this podcast. Anyway, off to the 70s. Number two.
All right, my number two show in the 70s, I'm going to have to say, is a drama that I was really into as a kid, believe it or not. And it's not Little House on the Prairie. It was the other drama on CBS. It was The Waltons. Mm-hmm. The Waltons is the butt of a lot of people's jokes. They make fun of the Waltons. No. They're like, oh, yeah, good night, John Boy, blah, 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 blah. And I remember everyone doing that. But when I watch the Waltons now, when they're streaming on whatever channel they happen to be on, I see exactly what that show is about. You talk about family values. You talk about family. You talk about love between one another. Growing up during the Depression, times were hard. It's when my parents grew up. So it's when my parents were young, but were kids, babies. But their mothers and fathers remembered it. My grandparents remembered it very well. So they had that connection. And the Waltons timeline was set a little later than Little House on the Prairie. Little House was back in the late 1800s, but the Waltons were up in the late 20s, early 30s during the Depression, and it went on up to the 50s as long as it ran, or the 40s. But another show that was perfectly cast. You've got such great figure. Ralph Waite is the father. You got Michael Learned as Mrs. Walton, and you got Will Gear as grandpa. You got Ellen Corby. All the kids are in it. Richard Thomas is just an amazing guy. He was just locally here in Atlanta. He was at the Fox Theater, and he was in To Kill a Mockingbird. Starring in To Kill a Mockingbird here in Atlanta was Richard Thomas, and I had friends go see it and said he was incredible. He's a great actor. The Waltons for me is fantastic. I love the Waltons, and I can still watch it today.
Hey, Barry, trivia question. What does Judy Norton and Michael Learned have in common?
They're both on the Waltons.
Another shameless promo from Pat McCormack and Retro TV Radio. They were both on my podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, you didn't remember that. Oh.
See how I let you squeeze? No, I knew. I was just kidding. I let you squeeze into that, see? I did the Kent McCord one for you too. You know, I knew that.
Yes, let's see what more we have in store.
Let's see if we can't work D. Wallace Stone into this conversation.
Absolutely. God.
Yeah. That's awesome.
She was awesome too. She was on twice actually. I loved having
That's
her
right.
on.
She was, yeah.
Okay.
With the Waltons was great. Loved it. Jerry Goldsmith wrote the soundtrack, the theme song to the Waltons. Another great movie composer.
Yeah. So now that was number 2, right? Or was it number 1? No, number 2.
No, that was number 2. The number 1 show for me in the 70s. This is where I kind of agonized. The 70s, I had a list of 15 shows from the 70s. I had to whittle it down to 2. And I did. I did a good job. But my number 1 show from the 70s, it was my dad's number 1 show. It was a groundbreaking show on CBS. And when I say there'll never be another show like this, I mean it. In today's climate, you could never do this show, and I don't think anyone would even try it. And that's All in the Family.
Yeah.
All in the Family, a show that dealt with just about everything under the sun that was unheard of on television until this show came along.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Oh yeah. And revolutionary. I mean, it begat so much of the, I don't want to call it raunchy comedy of the later, into the 90s. And
controversial comedy.
Yeah, I like that.
At the time, yeah.
I like that because, let's face it, these people were hilarious. I mean,
oh, yeah.
They were masters of the comedic genre. And, again, perfectly cast, Mr. Simon. Thank you. Just amazing.
Yeah. Norman Lear.
Yeah, Mr. Simon. No, I was talking about Simon and Simon. The show Simon and Simon.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That's true.
What do you think I got did you think I got the director wrong?
No, you didn't get it wrong. You're the host.
God.
No way. Sorry.
Oh, it's my dyslexia that does that.
Dyslexia. You're dyslexia. To be able to take all those controversial themes and hide them cleverly in a comedy the way they did, it was kind of like how Star Trek would take all the social issues going on the planet Earth and the country and hide it in a sci-fi story. All in the Family did it as well and did it in a comedy and with a hilarious show. I can watch All in the Family now and I will laugh out. I know that I think a show is funny when I actually laugh out loud or have to stop it if I'm streaming it and I can pause it and just stop it and compose myself. And hey, when you film your show in front of a live audience, that's the gauge of how funny your show is. And All in the Family did that. Not all shows do that in front of a live audience, but when you got a live audience, they will tell you when it's funny. And brother, did they.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Well, okay. So now
we won't even get it. We won't even get the spinoffs from Norman Lear and All in the Family. Think of the spinoffs it made. Oh my God. It was incredible.
Matter of fact,
incredible.
This Hollywood show I'm going to, there's a Good Times reunion.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, Good Times. Fantastic show. Fantastic.
Jimmy Walker and the younger brother and the sister are going to be there.
Yeah, Bernadette Santos. Yeah.
See why I like this guy, folks?
Right.
He knows his stuff. That's why you should tune into these Retro-Paloozas because it's a plethora of that.
Another bit of trivia from Good Times. Mike Evans, who played Lionel on The Jeffersons from All in the Family, he's the guy that helped co-create Good Times, and the young kid Michael on Good Times is him personified in the show. So that's great. Yeah. Oh, by the way, my third favorite from the 70s, $6 Million Man. Okay, now we can move on.
Yeah, to do it. Well, guess what? They're going to be at the Hollywood show too.
Oh, is Lee? Oh, yeah. They're usually at Dragon Con in Atlanta every year, and they're great together. They really are. They're still fantastic together.
I can't wait. This is going to be a blast for me.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay. Let's time travel to the 80s.
Well, you've reached a decade, believe it or not, that I quit watching new television. Not altogether. I did find things to watch from time to time, but I wasn't a big fan of the 80s when it comes to television. For some reason, I don't know what happened. I think mid to late 80s was a lot of rock music died and a lot of television died at that point, to be quite honest, but that's just my personal opinion. But I think my second favorite show of the 80s is really another kind of a farce comedy like Gilligan's Island was. I mean, this is more of a farce than even Gilligan's Island is by any stretch of the imagination. Talk about a raunchy show. I really was a big fan of Married with Children from the 1980s. I loved that show. It was a goofy, it was escapism comedy. It didn't make any sense. They went off the rails so many times. But out of all the other stuff that was being offered in the 80s, like all these hospital shows and these detective shows and these I better protect my client before he's found guilty and all this stuff on television, I found Married with Children a big breath of dirty, fresh air.
I agree.
I really did.
I had the same feeling about the 80s, and I think we've shared that with each other because, there was hokey comedy. It was funny, and, Cheers, it was incredible. But, it's like, I don't know. There was just a lot of hokey comedy, sitcom type stuff that, Three's Company, One Day at a Time, Growing Pains, these things that were just like, no. Plus, I was playing music like crazy. I was on a stage at night, so I didn't really watch a lot of primetime television. And
yeah, I understand.
So,
I really struggled to find two shows that I really love, but there's two of them that I really loved in the 80s.
So what else you got?
Well, one of them is still running to this day, and my favorite show of the 80s has to be The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah.
Animated. What can you say about The Simpsons that hasn't already been said about how legendary that it is? Love it or hate it, you can't deny, even if you hate The Simpsons and can't stand it, you can't deny the complete rule-breaking legendary status that animated show that started on the Tracy Ullman Show, which has long been gone. They outlived her by many years. Yeah. And nothing against her, but The Simpsons, the witty, intelligent, funny, almost genius-like writing on that show about the people write it off. Some people that don't watch just a cartoon about Bart Simpson. I hate that show. That's really not what it's about. It's about so much more. It's looking at society. It's making fun of stereotypes. It's being stereotypes. Anything you can mention about The Simpsons, it is. And unlike, kind of like The Simpsons, the Flintstones in the 60s was a prime time animated show in prime time. Well, The Simpsons is a prime time, not shown on Saturday mornings, a primetime show for good reason. It's that good.
Yeah. And it spawned a lot of great animated comedy series that weren't necessarily for Saturday morning TV as well. I love Family Guy to this day. And that was all inspired by The Simpsons.
Yeah, shows that would not be if not for The Simpsons. You're right.
And so, and for its longevity and its sheer amount of incredible work, it's a piece of American history, Americana, or whatever you want to call it.
Of course,
it's that big, folks, and it's gonna be historical.
And like I said, like it or hate it. If you hate it, like it or hate it, you can't deny it.
Exactly,
that's very true.
Exactly.
And my little runner-up for the 80s, I'll have to say this, is The Equalizer with Edward Woodward. That was the one drama show of the 80s that I really liked. It's turned into a motion picture world now with Denzel Washington, which is amazing too. So yeah, The Equalizer was a good show.
The Equalizer was great. I mean, there wasn't a bad episode, and yet it's been so long. All I remember is one scene where the main guy, can't remember his name, he's lowering his gun, in a face-off. The idea is that the guy with the gun to the woman's head wants him to lower his gun, and so he lowers it sideways. And once he gets it to his thigh, he points it up and fires it. Just like,
see, that's great.
Pulls the wrist back and takes the guy out. And it was
that's great.
Oh my God, this show is incredible. You would never see that.
Robert McCall, that's the character's name on The Equalizer, Robert McCall. And if you remember, here's a trivia question for you. Does Pat McCormack remember what handgun Robert McCall used? It's kind of an easy answer if you think about it.
It reminded me of a cigarette lighter.
He was such a good shot, he could have lit a cigarette with it, yeah.
I'm thinking about that exact gun when I was telling you the story. But see, I'm not a gun guy. I couldn't really tell you what it was.
You don't have to be a gun guy to know it, because another famous secret agent used the same gun. He used a Walther PPK, yeah.
And lo and behold, Barry King did not mention Star Trek The Next Generation. Whoa.
No, Barry King did not, because as big as a Star Trek fan as I am, for me, Star Trek The Next Generation didn't really grab me and get going till about the third season of the show, because I wasn't that big of a fan of it. And people assume that I'm a Star Trek fan, which I am, that I'm going to like everything that comes out about Star Trek. And that's actually not true. I'm very picky when it comes to Star Trek. But The Next Generation did find their stride a little further on into the show and became their own entity. You know, they moved out of the shadow of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy and became their own show. And then they went in and made their own films in the cinema. So kudos to them. But no, it did not make my list of the big two or the big three. No, it didn't.
Okay, so here's a surprise. What are you watching now? And please just keep it to one or two, Barry. My God.
Well, how can you keep it to one or two with 50 billion streaming shows? TV's so different now.
I was like, this is a loaded question, man. I was going to say, what do you recommend, Barry?
Isn't it amazing, though, Pat, that we used to have to plan our lives around television. Now we plan television around our lives.
Yeah.
And it is so much easier now to do it. It's like, I got to get home to find out who shot JR, or I'm going to miss it. You know, I can't go out with you tonight. But now I'm like, I'll just watch it when I get home. I'll stream it. Well, right now, we're eagerly awaiting the premiere of a show that we've been watching that we really love, and that's The House of Dragon on HBO, on Max.
Mm.
We're big fans of Game of Thrones, and when they announced House of Dragon, we started watching it, and we've both been big fans. Then kind of they delayed their new season for a while and stuff like that, but they are premiering not too far from the date that we're doing the show on right now. So I'm looking forward to that coming up very, very soon.
Yeah, yeah.
And then all those shows out there, I don't really stream and watch a lot of new stuff. I did watch a new show called The Citadel, which I thought was pretty cool. It's kind of a spy show, but there's another good one there that I'd watched.
Yeah. Well, for my 2 cents, this year I got turned on to Resident Alien, and that show is one of the funniest sci-fi dramas I have ever seen. And that's a popular genre now, because I'm now into this one called Fallout. And yeah,
I've heard of those shows, yeah.
Oh, my God. It's just so great. It's so great. These actors are top-notch. The stories are top-notch. The special effects are top-notch. They're just... Thank God the writing strike is over, because we are rolling in some great entertainment with likely a lot more to come. And speaking of great entertainment, it's BK on the air. Have we said that enough? On WBHF Radio from 10 to 12 Eastern. And you can find it on WBHFradio.org. What do you think? How am I doing?
That was the best segue I've ever heard in my entire life.
And the TuneIn app, and you know, just kind of laying on the side of the road somewhere.
Yeah. That's right.
Finish that off for me, Barry.
You're great, man. Just keep going. Keep going. You're doing it great.
I thought I did. I don't know, though.
Well, let me add to that not only can you hear us on the TuneIn app and Radio Garden app, you don't have to listen to those, because those things have so many extra commercials thrown in that it'll drive you crazy. The way you don't have to worry about those extra commercials, and you can stream us at the website that Pat said, but you can also download the new WBHF Radio app to hear everything. And there's connection ways. There's a menu wheel there. You can find out what's going on. This app is so nice and new that it still has the new app smell to it. I'm telling you right now, it's fantastic. It still smells great. But you know, you can do everything from chat with us there while we're on the air. Send us a message. You can stream us live from the app. You can listen to all the past shows there through an archive. There's so much to do there, but it's WBHF Radio. One of the oldest, I will say, still on the air AM stations in America. Not the oldest, but it's one of the oldest. We started broadcasting in 1946.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and listen, personally, if we weren't separated by a couple thousand miles, we'd be hanging out a lot more. But, you know, it's the way it is. we are separated by a few heavy-duty mountain ranges and, pandemics and this and that. That's been getting in the way of it. But you're one of my best friends, Barry, and that's going to last a lifetime, and which means I know we will meet. We will have pie and coffee, and that'll be a day to be remembered, and I'm looking forward to it.
I was going to say that if we lived close to each other, our wives would hate it because we'd probably spend a lot of time together. But I started thinking about they probably would too. So they're such nice ladies, they might happen. So, but yeah, I agree with everything you said. It will happen soon, and I'm looking forward to it.
And we'll watch for the Retro-Palooza, which is coming. We don't know when, but I got a feeling this whole thing is going to spark it. I know it is, as a matter of fact. So we're going to do it, and it'll be the four of us. That's set in stone.
Yes. And along with the radio show, if anybody wants to subscribe and like my YouTube channel, it's BK on the Air, or on Spotify, BK on the Air as well. Just look for me out there. I'll pop up somewhere. Just put it in BK on the Air and search, and you'll find me.
There you go. Brother Barry, so great talking to you, my friend.
Brother Pat, thank you for having me. I appreciate it like you won't believe.
All right. You get on with your week here.
All right, buddy, you too, and I'll talk to you soon wherever it might be.
Sounds good. There you have it, another Retro TV Radio podcast in the books. You'll find links to Barry's YouTube channel and to WBHF Radio in my episode description. Also, remember to download the new WBHF app, where you can enjoy all the entertainment that Saturday morning's BK on the Air has to offer. You can follow me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Golden Rage of TV, and on X at Golden Rage of TV1. This is your host, Pat McCormack, and thanks again for listening to Retro TV Radio.